want it to be inspiring in a different way, not inspiring like that's the funnest thing in the world, but inspiring that I hope you come away from this thinking I could do that. Okay? All right. Like many of you, I like to imagine myself in these settings. That I am a field ecologist, and there I am. We're on an extended adventure. We're going to be measuring trees every single day for the next 2 weeks. We're out in the middle of somewhere really cool, or I'm hanging next to big old trees and doing really fun stuff, or smiling right after a burn. I love that, right? That is who I imagine I am, but what I know is this is who I actually am. I went through in the self-aggrandizing way. My phone the other day, I was like, why do I have to be damn pictures of myself wearing a tie in an awkward setting in Washington, D.C.? And that is exactly what these are. A lot of bad hair days, you can see some of those. But doing stuff that is not me being in the field and being the fire ecologist that I dream that I still am. It really is walking the halls of Congress, at the White House, engaging in conversations that I know that all of you feel strongly about. I feel strongly about it, and it is the passion that Dan spoke about and has lived. It gets us to do stuff that's uncomfortable, and maybe stuff that I don't know if you can tell by the ties. I don't like to tie a tie, and I don't like to wear a shirt that fits that way. It gets us to do those things. Be a little uncomfortable, and I'll go through sort of why that is. But I want to give you my background. And in this session, we're going to have 3 folks who have very different backgrounds. And I hope that part is also illustrative for what this field looks like. In none of that in my background do you see fire policy. And I had to go back and look at my transcripts, which was quite an adventure. In the fall of 1996, I took a course in forest policy. And I didn't make an A. But that is the extent of my training. And if you try to think back to 30 years ago, you remembering something impactful from a course, that was certainly not the one. I was an ecologist at that point and very interested in the forest and not the other parts. But since that time, I've been working in science, and I like to think of myself as an expert. And importantly, I'm a child of the 1970s, and Saturday mornings I spent watching this little cartoon here. So I do know how a bill becomes a law, but that's the extent of my training. Okay. So for the last about 6 years, I've spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., and it was because my organization, Tall Timbers, has always spoken out for prescribed fire. And what we figured out over the last decade and a half was speaking out we're based in Tallahassee, state capital. Speaking out in Tallahassee or going to Atlanta or going to Montgomery or the other southern state capitals would only get us so far, because there were challenges that were occurring at the national level, occurring in Washington, D.C. And we looked around to who was talking about fire in Washington, D.C. And it wasn't us, any of you in the room. It was folks that I would call policy wonks, talking heads. They had a line that they would use. And this has been validated in the last 6 years of me spending time there. They will say the right thing. And as soon as you go to the question, like all of us would do as trained in science, we would say, well, why would that be the case? They have no ability to go deep. They understand the policy, they understand how a bill becomes a law, but they don't understand the depth of the situation. So what I have continued to come to is and this is what every congressional staffer says. They don't need me to understand how a bill becomes a law. They don't need me to understand, how we're playing politics. What they need is a subject matter expert, and they need a document. And if I had a picture of all of you right now, that's who you are in this room. You understand the topic in incredible depth. You're willing to spend days away from your topic to learn more about a topic that you know a lot about. That says something about who you are. And what they continue to say is we need more subject matter experts and fewer people that are talking to us. All right, so there's a recognition there. So you go from the recognition to, we're going to do some math here, see if this works. All right, U.S. Senate. there are a lot of senators, right? You have 2 senators per state, 50 states, that's a big number. And then you have 438 of those House members. If you add those two together, I did this earlier, 538 would be what you would get. You're all following along. That is an outrageous job to do if it is going to be 5% or something of someone's time. If I would still be rooted in my field and have that subject matter expertise, dividing my time by 538 people, those who are making the laws, is really difficult. If you want to put on top of that, all of these people and those that are in their headquarters when they're still based in Washington, D.C., or those in regional offices that are making large decisions that fundamentally affect prescribed fire and how it's applied, that's really daunting. And so going from the recognition that we need to help to what a practical plan is for that, that's what I can see in your eyes right now. That's daunting and overwhelming. So I'm going to do some more. What I'm going to talk about is a little bit of strategy. So 6 years, 5.5 years ago, Paul Timmer started working with a strategy firm in Washington, D.C. That's a code word for lobbyists. And what we said, we did that after about 2 years of doing this strategy number 1. I learned in Saturday morning cartoons that what I'm supposed to do is call my congressperson, right? I got 2 senators in Florida and I have a local House member. And I would call them and say, here are the individual issues, and they went nowhere. And I was so frustrated. My gosh, we're like the epicenter for prescribed fire science and understanding in the world, and our local people don't even listen to us. What's the problem there? That strategy 1 didn't work out. We tried it for a year and a half, and abandoned it. They had no power. They were on no cognizant committees. They did nothing. That was not their area. And what happens in the 538 is they tend to fall into their own committees and their specialty. They represent the district, but representing the district is not leading something in Washington, D.C. The people that I would see on television were not the people who were doing things. That's just their role in D.C. is to be on television. They're not leading a bill. They're not leading a fight for a big gift. So I tend to, based on my own experience and experience of our firm that we work with, this is not a great strategy unless your person is one of those key people. There's Pennsylvanians in here. You have a key power broker. If they're, for me right now, I have a person doing something that's pretty big, but in general, your local people tend to not be the best representatives. And that's further daunting, isn't it? You had 538, I got it down to 3, but now my 3 are all pointless. So the policy strategy number 2, and this is what we've done with our government affairs team, is go to who makes the rules, and that is the committees of the staff. Okay, the Senate and House are divided into individual committees, and for all of us, this is it. There are only this many, and you may not even need all of these. So in the House and the Senate, agriculture on the left and the right, energy and commerce, or the other name in the Senate, natural resources, or E&R in the Senate, different science and others that are taken care of, EPA, National Science Foundation, others. And because we're a science organization, we add that in, and of course appropriations, because they're the most powerful of all. They're actually saying where the money goes, not just that everybody needs them. And that becomes manageable because each of those has a chair, a ranking member, and each of those, that chair and that ranking member have writers that actually do all of the work. And so we've now gone from 538 to 2 times 5, like 10 people that really matter. And maybe there are 20, really what we've done, we've identified like 35 people that actually run all of our individual issues in Washington, D.C. And that is manageable on a 5% appointment that is focused on this. This is not like, I'm telling you all this because I want you to do this. I want to like run into you in Washington, D.C. and you can make fun of my hair or my tie is not tied very nicely. Because these are the people that are generating, that are making our lives either better or worse, or land management that are changing. Hopefully they're preventing something happening to the agencies that we love, or they are supporting projects that we care about. The committee staff, is a critical relationship. And the way we have done this is, making relationships with key staff. Letting them understand the specific area of our subject matter expertise. I don't go in and say, give me any question you have about nature, any question about natural resources management, I'm ready for it. What I do is say, here's my lane, and I'm ready for your questions. I'm here to push prescribed fire as much as I possibly can. They want to ask a question about wildfire, I'll tackle a little bit, but in general, I'm just focused on my issue. I may throw an Oprah time there, but it's going to be focused on my issue. And this could be done in individual meetings, this could be done in caucus briefings, this could be done in testimony. And this is my little cheat sheet. Number one, building the relationships with those folks. It's not doable for each of you. And what you're doing in those, you may say, well, I can't lobby. You know who else can lobby? I can. I can advocate. It's a very different role, and I can educate. Our organization, as a 501c3, has an ability to have lobbying. It's a very small fraction, and can't, there's some ambiguous IRS laws on it. But what I have the ability to do is go in and educate. I don't go say, I really need you to pass this bill. What I go in and say is, here's the problem for prescribed fire practitioners and private landowners. This is why this would not work. Southeast, most of the prescribed fire takes place. This is how this would affect Florida. I'm educating. I'm not saying vote for this, or I'm not supporting the individual kingdom. For the issues that fall outside of my specific expertise area, you brought them to partners, which is why I'm asking all of you to get engaged in something like this, because I don't want to do it for more than 5% of my time. I enjoy going to Washington, D.C., but I do want to be in the field at sometimes. I want to see my family. And so what we do is we partner with friends, partner with other organizations that have broader expertise. And what they do is then steer fire questions to us. We steer other questions to them. That's a fantastic plan. I would suggest if your organization, whether it is a state, universities always have strong lobbyists. They tend to be focused on appropriations and fewer of these. Work with the lobbyists. They know their way around this, and they can make this sort of job much more easy for you than trying to hustle through DC. If you're offered the opportunity to provide testimony, 100% you should do it. Who else in the world would you rather have talking about an issue that you care about than you? So I would strongly encourage you to do that. Briefings are super impactful. And this last one, it's particularly relevant right now. Every time I walk out of a staff office, I am sure that they think I am in their party, and I am actually pretty ravenous in their party. And I walk to the next person who has a different colored tie on, and they think I am in their party, and I am a really strong supporter in their party. But in general, as an organization, there is a party ambiguity. We are not political. I'm right down the middle. If I had a radical left or radical right senator or House member support a bill or tweet, they had a great conversation with Varner at Tall Timbers, my credibility would go away. The other side of the aisle would say that he's a Republican or he's a Democrat. I have no idea. I don't think I was. And so what you're doing, if Tommy Tuberville says, I'd love to have a bill and push it for you, Heather should say, no, we don't touch that. That's toxic. Other side of the aisle, same thing. You avoid those people like the plague, because what you want is something that happens and it endures in the future. And the way you do that is here, not only this. Here's a long list. I think we're going to hit a lot of these in our conversation today, and some of these have already come up. This is why I think the three of us will be up on the stage for a little bit, do this, because a lot of these issues are big issues. They are hurdles to implementation. They are affecting whether a species is thriving or becomes listed. They're affecting whether communities suffer through smoke issues or wildfires burning houses down, or a general loss of wildlife habitat. So if none of these issues matter to you, and I know that they all do, You don't have to think about policy, but if they do matter to you, I think you need to think about ways that, in your capacity, that you support this sort of stuff. Okay? All right. That is all I have.